Welcome to Japanese History for Everyone, where we break down Japanese history into easy-to-bite pieces. Today we're introducing another series, and this time it's on female leaders of Japan. So what myth are we breaking down in this one? Well, it's one I've brought up before, the idea that Japan has always been ruled by an unbroken line of Japanese men, and therefore should continue to be ruled by an unbroken line of Japanese men. It's a concept that's in itself problematic, because for one, this line has been broken, and more than once. Also, the Emperor of Japan hasn't even been the direct ruler of Japan for at least half of its verifiable history. And oh yeah, Japan has been ruled by women, in many cases directly, and on at least one occasion, an empress passed down leadership from herself to a daughter. The argument against this has been that these women often ruled as regents, because their son, a male heir, was too young to rule. But that's not actually always the case. It's also been the case that leadership transferred to a wife upon the death of her husband, even without a male heir, and in some cases, daughters inherited rule directly from their fathers. The current narrative of the emperor and his unbroken male lineage is something that was almost entirely invented during the Meiji period in the late 19th century, when Japan created their modern government. We'll go into the details of that as we work our way through each female leader. Though, full disclosure, we will be skipping Himiko/Pimiko, since she already has her own video series, which you can see here. Also, we'll be skipping Empress Shotoku/Kogyoku, because she's already got her own shiny video, which you can also view here. Okay, so without further ado, let's begin with a leader who is not only not officially considered an Empress of Japan, but there is even debate on whether or not she truly existed, and is overall considered legendary or mythical. Her name is Empress Jingu. The story goes that Empress Jingu was the wife of Emperor Chuhai. During his reign, Emperor Chuhai made the decision to go to war in Korea, most likely against Shilla, since it was the Three Kingdoms of Korea, where he then died in battle. And upon his death, Jingu was able to finish his war, conquer Shilla, and then earn the title of Empress of Japan upon her return. As a note, Jingu didn't actually conquer Shilla, but in the Korean records known as the Samguk Sagi, it is written that Japan did assist the Korean kingdom of Pakja in their war against Shilla, sometime in the late 4th century, so it's possible that these events are rooted in some truth, especially considering that the late 4th century is a more reasonable date that Jingu may have existed. More on this in a future series. Interestingly, the story written into the Kojiki and the Nihon Shoki states that at the time of her ascension, Jingu was not acting as a regent of a younger male heir, at least not initially. Rather, Jingu conceived a son prior to Chuhai's death, and then, 3 years later, gave birth to the heir to the throne, the future Emperor Ojin. And in case that's not clear, this is impossible. So either this is symbolic and the child was born at a different time, or Emperor Ojin is not the son of Emperor Chuhai, which to any Japanese nationalist is sacrilegious to say, but I don't have proof either way, so I can't deny the possibility. And that brings us to another thing. The official dates of Jingu's reign are 201 to 269, but if she did in fact exist, she most likely existed much later than this. Perhaps somewhere in the 4th century, when Japan was in fact engaged in conflicts with Korea. Also, if you notice, the dates given to her match another female Japanese leader. The one we all know and love? That's right, Himiko. And it's almost a certainty that these dates were chosen on purpose to line up with the dates that Himiko was said to have been in communication with China, because the writers of the Kojiki also knew about the records of Wei, and they needed to reconcile them with their own narrative. Therefore, either the dates are wrong, or Jingu did not exist. And this is because the narrative of Jingu's life doesn't quite match up, nor does it have any of the makings of someone from the Yayoi period. So with that stated, the story of Jingu is most certainly legendary, but it's possibly rooted in some historical truths, just not dated to the period that she most likely existed. So whether or not she did rule as a regent between the rule of Emperor Chuhai and Emperor Ojin is debatable. And sure, the story of her reign may have been made up or inflated in order to correlate her with Himiko, but what's more important is that she's the earliest female leader written into the Nihon Shoki, and for centuries has been celebrated not only as a leader, but as a badass woman who was able to take on a foreign power and win. That's it for today, and if you want to learn more about Japanese female leaders, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and stay tuned for more videos.